Hello, I'm Chris Williamson to talk about why I became an architect, where it has taken me and my hopes for the future. Mark Twain said the two most important days of your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. I don't remember the first, but I remember the second as though it was yesterday. I was 18, it was a rainy lunchtime, and I picked up this book in the school library. I had a place at Leicester Polytechnic to study graphic design. The year before, I'd won a competition to design a new bag for Reynolds Records in Ilkeston. I thought that was the start of a brilliant career as a graphic designer, but this book changed that. Ironically, I was attracted to it by the graphic design. The cover showed the image of a man. The references, I'm afraid, are solely male. The man was formed of words which go to make up an architect: art, technology, research, law, psychology, design. The cover and all the fantastic illustrations were by David Rock, who became president of the RIBA in 1997. In one of those many strange coincidences in life, he asked me to help him on council and also be the chairman of the Architecture Centre. It was a great honour and a fantastic experience. By that time, however, the profession was very different to the one described in this book 30 years earlier. But back to Ilkeston and that rainy lunchtime. Like many of my generation, I'm at the same time incredibly grateful and a bit embarrassed to have been given the most fantastic free grammar school education. I had wonderful teachers, but architecture was a profession, and even in the 1970s was a bit of a closed shop. And that's one of the reasons I'm passionate about social mobility. Architecture was not suggested to someone with my background, and I don't want to see that happen to others. There needs to be routes to allow anyone to study what they are enthusiastic about. I loved what this book told me about civic duty and a responsibility to society. Suddenly, designing the new bag for Reynolds Records suddenly seemed pretty pedestrian, so I begged Leicester to let me study architecture instead. And it was without doubt the best decision I have ever made. Architecture has given me not just a career, but a cause, not just a living, but a reason to live. It has, I feel like many architects, consumed most of my waking hours and most of my dreams too. I'm recording this in the middle of the coronavirus lockdown, and I guess like many people, for once, have a bit more time to think and reflect. This is me on the right. Even then I had lockdown hair, and I looked like I'd just spotted a badly proportioned elevation. My dad died when I was 3, so this must have been the previous summer. My mum raised my brother and I, and she was always very supportive of me staying on at school, even though it must have been incredibly hard for her. It's important for everyone to feel encouraged, to have even a handful of people who believe in you, and I've been lucky to have that at important times. I must admit I had a bit of a wobble before I took up my place at Leicester and told my mum I was going to leave school and get a job. She said she would never speak to me again if I did. So off I went, with incredible good fortune and immense gratitude, to study, all expenses paid, plus amazingly a grant to live on, to change the world. So now, in my first year at Leicester, studying architecture, not graphic design, and after a couple of months, we were divided into groups for projects on nothing more than alphabetical order. I remember the lecturer saying, "Williamson, you can work with Andrew Weston," and 45 years later, I still am. We discovered we had the same aims and ambitions, but different compatible skills. Andrew and I were passionate about sustainability as the world began to wake up to the fact that oil reserves were finite and the prices continued to rise. And like most boys who were 11 or 12 when Neil Armstrong walked on the moon, we believed that technology and design would provide all the answers. Andrew entered and won the glass and glazing competition, judged by Norman Foster, and I won the less glamorous In-Plan Energy Conservation Award, sponsored by Tarmac. After finishing our studies, Andrew went to work on the Lloyd's building at Richard Rogers, and I went to work at Michael Hopkins. It was a fantastic place to work, and I learned as much in my 5 years there from Michael Hopkins and Mark Sutcliffe and Ian Sharratt as I did at Leicester. Andrew and I continued to work on competitions at the weekends, and in 1985 put all our drawings together, and we were chosen for the RIBA 40 Under 40 exhibition. The president, Michael Manser, and his journalist wife Jose were encouraging and convinced us to start Weston Williamson. But looking back, we were very naive. We didn't have many clients or contacts, but we had lots of enthusiasm. I enrolled on a part-time MSc in project management and property development at the South Bank, which took most of my weekends and evenings, but introduced me to some young property professionals, and as the only architect on the course, was able to offer to do their designs, most of which were converting disused industrial spaces to design studios. One of our earliest projects was to convert an office building to a science centre for Westminster School. And at the opening I had a conversation with the Queen. My mum would have thought that that alone was worth all of her encouragement and sacrifice. I know you're not supposed to talk about conversations with the Queen, but privately I've dined out on it on several occasions. She was wonderful. Our first big break, or so we thought, came when we won a competition to design the new headquarters for the Port of Tilbury. It was an RIBA shortlisted competition, and they always included a young architect on the shortlist, as they do now. We won it, and we had completed all the working drawings and were just about to go to tender when there was a recession and interest rates rose to 15% and the project was cancelled. We decided to do another competition judged by James Sterling to reorganise the Piazza Roma in Venice. We were commended and then had the good fortune to be interviewed by Roland Paletti, who had just returned from Hong Kong to choose architects for the Jubilee Line. Roland ensured that there was a young architect on each of the shortlists of 4 for each of the 10 stations. He was an Italian architect and loved our scheme for Venice. These were state-of-the-art CAD drawings at the time, and we had plotted all the vehicle movements. Along with the design competition, there were lots of forms and technical submissions, and this is where my project management qualification came to the fore, and we won the job to design London Bridge Jubilee Line Station. It was a fantastic experience, and we discovered that we loved working with civil engineers. Not that structural engineers are any less civil, but we discovered a passion for infrastructure and found that it encapsulated all our ideas about how cities could be reinvigorated, redefined, and made more sustainable through good public transport. These images encapsulate why we are passionate about our work, what we are doing to our planet, and the effects on our environment, both in physical health and in mental health. We have continued to work on city-shaping transport projects in different parts of the world. The great thing about working collaboratively is that colleagues move around a lot in our industry. So after the Jubilee Line was completed in 1999, many engineers moved abroad and asked us to support them elsewhere. We've been fortunate to work in India, Dubai, Malaysia, Singapore, and now have studios in Melbourne, Sydney and Toronto. We have also completed many different kinds of projects, including a laboratory in Boston, New England, which we won out of 350 entries in an international competition. Competitions are often criticised by architects, but personally, I think they are great and they've served us well. If you don't like competitions, you don't need to enter, but I admit many of them could be better run. Recently, our work has expanded to include master planning and urban design around transport hubs, which has led to new residential projects also. When the Jubilee Line was designed, it was seen purely as a transport project, but now it is widely acknowledged how important these projects are in regeneration and expanding cities. Projects like Crossrail, this is Paddington, are seen as regeneration and city-shaping projects. In 1995, I completed a master's degree in urban design and became a member of the Royal Town Planning Institute. I believe passionately in lifelong learning, and there's still a lot to learn. Our urban design work has been invaluable, particularly on projects like Crossrail 2, where there's an opportunity to influence the alignment of the route to ensure maximum regeneration benefit, to produce the best business case. I remember finishing my Part 3 exams thinking I never needed to do another exam again, but after a few years having a thirst for new knowledge, and we're fortunate that there are so many opportunities to learn. One of the highlights of my career has been winning the Queen's Award for Export. It really helps to have a specialism, especially if you want to work abroad. British architects and engineers are highly regarded throughout the world. This is helped, of course, by heroes like Norman Foster and Richard Rogers leading the way and exporting their vision of the world from a legacy dating back to Brunel and Paxton. I like to think that all the fantastic free education I was given in Ilkeston and in Leicester has been repaid by building a business and exporting the talents of our amazing team, and giving them the opportunity and experience to work abroad. We have recently completed a major piece of research looking at 10 global cities, which we want to do each year to see how commuter attitudes change as cities grow and develop. We are learning a lot from each of the cities that we work in. Our mission statement talks about creating civilized cities, and this pandemic of 2020 might provide a further impetus to provide better urban spaces, better infrastructure, and more space for cyclists and pedestrians. And I'm not finished yet. There's lots more I want to do. It's incredibly exciting thinking about the advances in technology and how they're going to change the way we move between and around our cities and how we live. And we've started to think about how we can plan and design our cities much better. Not a dystopian future, but a green and pleasant place. Many architects do their best work late in life. I've recently written a 20-year vision for Weston Williamson. Not just the projects we want to do, but the kind of business we want to be and the impact we want to have on the future of our fragile planet, particularly in the wake of this pandemic. I'd also like to see the RIBA become a global institute by providing the best online lifelong learning modules so that any architect anywhere in the world wants to join because they can demonstrate to their clients and colleagues that they know more, are more aware, and are better than non-RIBA architects and part of a like-minded global community. Lifelong learning is particularly important as a means to increase social mobility. We work with local schools to get them interested in architecture and engineering, and nearly 50 years later I recognise myself in many of the pupils who look at the drawings on our walls and the models and wonder why no one has suggested this as a career. It would be a fantastic legacy to leave to make it possible for children of all backgrounds to study architecture, graphic design, or anything else they are passionate about. Thank you.